Ava had mastered the art of being invisible. She moved through school hallways like a shadow slipping between cracks in the walls, never too close, never too seen. Her head was always bowed, not out of shyness, but survival, because looking up meant catching eyes, and catching eyes meant comments, laughter, whispers that dug deep like winter into bone. She wasn't loud or loud-looking, just different. Ava liked sketching in notebooks instead of chatting in crowds. She wore mismatched socks on purpose and read poetry at lunch instead of scrolling her phone. These small things, harmless and beautiful in their own right, became targets in a world that demanded sameness. It started with comments names thrown like stones. Then it turned into isolation. No one sat next to her in class. At lunch, she became a fixture at the far end of a long table, eating in silence. Even group projects became reminders of her exclusion, where she was assigned the background work and never the voice. No teacher seemed to notice, or maybe they did and chose to look away. That's the worst part, when pain becomes so familiar to others that it turns invisible. At home, she said nothing. Her parents worked long hours and always asked how school was in passing. "It's fine," she'd whisper. What else could she say? That she felt like a ghost no one remembered. That her name became a punchline. Ava carried her pain the way a tree carries winter, quietly, inwardly, waiting for something to change but no longer sure spring would come. There were nights when she'd stare at the ceiling, her sketchpad unopened beside her, wondering if she would ever feel real to someone, if her voice could ever matter. Then, one afternoon, while she waited outside the library after school, her literature teacher, Miss Carter, sat beside her. No warning, no lecture, just a calm presence that somehow felt like warmth. "I've read your poems," she said gently, sliding one of Ava's forgotten drafts from her folder. "You write what others are afraid to say." Ava's heart clenched. No one had ever said that to her. And in that moment, a flicker stirred like the first breath of spring beneath cold soil. It started with a whisper. Miss Carter suggested Ava submit something for the school newsletter anonymously, if that felt safer. Ava hesitated. Sharing her pain with strangers, even without her name, felt like opening an old wound to the wind. But something in Miss Carter's eyes, calm, steady, believing, nudged her forward. That night, Ava sat at her desk, hands trembling over the keyboard. She didn't write poetry. She wrote her truth. About the names, the silence, the ache of being there but never really seen. She ended it with a question. How many others are hiding like me? The story was published the following week. No name, no photo, just a title, Invisible. By noon, the article had been read over 200 times. Someone slipped a note under the classroom door. It read, "That story, it felt like mine." Ava couldn't breathe. For the first time, someone saw her pain and said, "Me too." Others followed. Messages scribbled on torn paper, emails sent through the school system. Some students wrote about being mocked for their clothes. Others shared their fear of walking into the cafeteria. One boy admitted to crying in the bathroom between classes. It was as if the entire school had been holding its breath, waiting for someone to go first. Ava, still hidden behind her anonymity, started collecting these stories. She created a simple blog under the name The Quiet Echo. Each post was a voice that had once been silent. She edited them carefully, gently protecting names, but revealing truths. And people kept writing. Not just from her school anymore. Stories came from other towns, other states. Kids from far-off places sent messages, thanking her for saying what they couldn't. Some stories were heartbreaking, others hopeful, but all of them were real. Every night, Ava read them in bed, her heart aching and expanding all at once. The more she shared, the more the silence cracked open. Her quiet echo was growing louder. She didn't feel invisible anymore. She still walked the same halls. But now, when she looked up, she sometimes met eyes that didn't mock, they nodded. A small smile, a silent thank you. And in those moments, Ava began to believe her voice, once buried, might actually be powerful. The blog outgrew her expectations, and her bedroom soon became the center of something bigger than she had imagined. Ava watched the numbers rise, hundreds, then thousands of readers. Comments flooded in, messages from teens and even adults who had carried scars for years. What had begun as a whisper was now a growing chorus. A journalism student from a nearby college discovered the blog and shared it on social media. A local news station picked up the story, curious about the anonymous teen behind the rising wave of stories. They called it a quiet revolution. Ava's world shifted. She was still anonymous, but the pressure to reveal herself mounted. Miss Carter gently asked if she was ready. Ava wasn't sure. Stepping into the light meant exposing herself again to judgment, to scrutiny, maybe even to the same ridicule that had once made her hide. But something had changed in her. It wasn't just about fear anymore. She had found something stronger, not boldness, exactly, something gentler, a purpose. One night, she opened an email from a girl in Oregon. The message was short. "Your blog made me put down the pills. Thank you for existing." Ava cried quietly in her room, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming truth that her pain had helped someone else feel less alone. And maybe that was worth everything. With Ms. Carter's help, Ava wrote a public post revealing her identity. She called it "My Real Name is Ava." She told her story again, but this time, she owned it fully. No hiding, no shielding her face behind words. Just Ava, real, flawed, and powerful in her honesty. The post went viral within hours. Teachers called to say they were proud. Former classmates messaged apologies, some sincere, some unsure. But Ava wasn't focused on them. She was focused on the flood of new voices pouring into her inbox, each one louder, braver, more willing to speak because she had spoken first. She was invited to speak at a youth summit on bullying. It terrified her, but she said yes. On that stage, in front of hundreds of young faces, Ava stood with trembling hands and steady eyes. "I used to be afraid of my voice," she said softly. "Now, I hope it gives you courage to find yours." Sometimes, it's the quietest voices that shift the loudest rooms. Ava's story is a reminder that even our pain has a purpose, that from the shadows of hurt can grow movements of healing. When we speak with honesty, we invite others to do the same. And in that shared space, something powerful is born. Change. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to speak with truth. If Ava could find her voice in silence, maybe we all can too. If this story moved you, take a moment to share, comment, and subscribe. Someone might need this story more than you know.